Hey guys, this is Miss Fos, and today we're going to talk a little bit about figurative language. I love figurative language. I use it all the time in class, and you guys have probably heard figurative language too before, you just haven't realized that's what it was. So, what is figurative language? Figurative language describes something by comparing it to something else. Figurative language is not meant to be taken literally. We've talked about this in class before about the differences between figurative language and literal language. It is the opposite of literal language. So here's an example. If someone is described as having a green thumb, the literal interpretation is that the person's thumb is truly green, as in the picture on the left. The figurative interpretation is that the person is good with green plants or gardening. So you guys have probably heard me talk about in class about how it is raining cats and dogs outside. I use this example quite a bit. If it is raining cats and dogs outside, literally that means there are cats and dogs falling from the sky. Figuratively, that just means it is raining really hard. So, how to recognize literal language? So, literal means it's actually happening. If the words truly mean what they say, then the words are literal. So, here's an example. Because I have studied for 3 hours, I now have a headache. This phrase should be taken literally. The person truly has a headache. In this next slide, you're going to be able to recognize figurative language. If the words do not truly mean what they say, then the language is figurative. So here's an example. My head is going to explode. This phrase should not be taken literally. The person may have a headache, but the person's head is not truly going to explode. So why don't we use figurative language? What's the point? Writers, especially poets, use figurative language to engage the reader and make the text more interesting. Figurative language allows the reader to visualize an array of images. This would not be as powerful or effective without the aid of figurative language. So there are a bunch of different types of figurative language: alliteration, hyperboles, idioms, metaphors, similes, onomatopoeias, my personal favorite, and personification. So what is a hyperbole? A statement that is so exaggerated that it could not possibly be true. It is used to heighten the effect. So an example, honey, I have told you that I love you at least 1,000,000 times. Probably not 1,000,000 times, but she's probably told him quite a few times. Another example, Mom, I need to play video games right now or I'm going to die. That is an example of an hyperbole. Are you literally going to die? No, probably not. You're probably just being a little dramatic and exaggerating that. An idiom. What's an idiom? You've probably heard quite a few idioms before. An idiom is an expression in one language that cannot be translated word for word in another language. It is language that is unique to itself. Example, you're driving me up the wall. Explanation, someone is really irritating someone else. Another example of an idiom that we've heard recently is goody two shoes. We've heard that in the book Wonder, and we'll explain that a little bit more tomorrow. Another example of an idiom is I'm on cloud 9, which means I'm really happy. Literally, I would be on a cloud 9. Similes. What is a simile? We use these quite a bit in class. A figure of speech which involves a direct comparison between two unlike things using the words like or as. An example, she is as busy as a bee. She is being compared to a bee. And all we're trying to say is that she is really, really busy. A metaphor, a figure of speech that is similar to a simile. Like a simile, a metaphor compares two unlike things. A metaphor, however, does not use the word like or as. All the world is a stage. World is being compared to a stage. And I'm just going to go back to the last slide and clarify something. A simile, you have to be comparing two things for it to be a simile. For example, if I said, I like bananas, just because it uses like, that does not mean it is a simile. I have to be comparing two things. In my sentence, I like bananas, I'm not comparing anything. I'm just simply stating that I like bananas. So that would not be a simile. All right, onomatopoeias. These are some of my favorite types of figurative language. An onomatopoeia is the use of a word to describe or imitate a sound. Examples: boom, moo, crash, crackle, and pop. And some examples underneath are pow, snap, and whisper. You have probably seen these examples of onomatopoeia in comic books. These are used a lot in comic books and visual books. You've probably also seen these a lot in video games, examples of onomatopoeia. Another type of figurative language is personification. Personification is a figure of speech in which human characteristics are given to an animal, object, or idea. So, example, the sun smiled at me. The sun can't really smile. Only humans can do that. So, what that is trying to say is that the sun shone down on me, the sun shined on me. That is what the sun smiled at me meant. Okay, so now I'm going to show you what you're going to be doing tomorrow in class. Tomorrow in class, we're going to be reading this story in class. It's called The Big Catch. So tomorrow in class, we're going to be reading this story, and as we read through the story, we are going to be talking about types of figurative language. So this is what you're going to do tonight at home. Tonight, you're going to read your story to your parent or someone in your house. And I want you to go through and see if you can find any figurative language. I want you to at least try to find 3 examples of figurative language, highlight them, any color, and then I want you to label them what they are. Is it onomatopoeia? Is it personification? Is it a simile? You might need some help from your parents or guardians, so that's fine with me. But be prepared to come to class tomorrow and talk about some examples of figurative language that you found in your story. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow.